Alright, today I'm going to show you how to tie a Clouser Minnow. I've been tying a lot of these this week. I've got a bunch of them, and the really fun thing about this fly is you can tie them in so many different colors. So this is one that I use a little bit of orange deer hair and some red flash with black eyes. And then I think the really good looking ones are pink and chartreuse with red eyes and this kind of cotton candy look with black thread and blue and pink deer hair. Just a really fun fly to tie, really easy. And since I haven't been able to get out this week and do anything outside, I just thought I'd show you what I've been doing. So I'm using these Gamakatsu B10S stinger hooks in a size 1, but you can really do whatever size you want. Just a little bit of a bigger hook. And then I'm going to be using these White River white dumbbell eyes. These are 3/16 inch. Again, you can play around with what size you want. The other one that I like is 7/32, around the 1 to 1/0 hook size. You also want to use a little bit of a thicker thread. So this is some UTC white 210. I'm going to start right about there. Snip this off. And I like to measure where my eyes go for consistency's sake, so I'll just hold them sideways, put one end in the eye of the hook, I'll measure out, and I'll kind of start tying them in about where they land. I'm going to build a little bit of a bump here. You don't need to go too crazy. I tend to overdo this. That's where my eyes are going to go. So I'll just put them on one side of that bump, kind of press them up against there. I'll hold them with this side. I'll show you what this looks like here in just 1 second. Do a couple thread wraps. So that eye is going to fit snug right there. You can see how the eye is kind of crooked. You'll come in with your other hand and hold it straight before really cranking down a few more thread wraps. You want to do that a couple times to make sure it's nice and straight, just like that. Now at this point, this will flip on you, so what you're going to want to do is do some helicopter wraps, which just means you go around the eyes on the bottom side, just like this. You go under there, across the hook, under the eyes, across the hook, under the eyes. I'm kind of pulling in when I do this, so I pull every time I go under the eyes. I really pull up and under them to kind of secure them right there. A couple wraps on the back side, a couple wraps on the front side. All right. And like I said, you can do any color you want for the eyes. These are just some of my favorites: white, black, red, chartreuse. You can also do like a white eye with a red pupil. Those are pretty cool. Just whatever you want. So the next thing you're going to want to do is think about the color that you want your minnow to be, because the eye is weighted. This does weigh a significant amount. This hook is pretty thick, but not so thick that it can counteract the weight of the eyes. So when you use this, it'll swim upside down. This is how it is keeled, which just means like oriented. So it'll swim like this. That means that the hair that you put in the gap of the hook right here is actually going to be your back side of the fish, and then what you tie in on top of your hook is going to be the belly, since it'll swim like this. In nature, usually the bellies of fish are lighter colored than the backs, which is why when you typically do chartreuse and white, you put white on the shank of the hook and chartreuse in the gap, because it'll swim like this, with a white belly, darker colored back. Now you can do that. You can even do this this is almost like a shrimp pattern where I put a piece of orange between two pieces of white. You can do all white. There's all sorts of things that you can do. This is a really popular saltwater variation with chartreuse on the back, pink on the belly, or pink on the chartreuse for the belly and then pink for the back. But you can really do whatever you want. It's not like a rule. So I'll keep it classic. I'm going to use some natural bucktail for this. So this is white and brown. I'm just going to stick with the white stuff. This is pretty long, so I'm going to have to measure that out. I'll get to show you that. I'm going to pinch off. It's a little much. I don't go crazy with the hair. I think it's harder to tie in when you have too much and it just looks a little bulky. It's probably about good. So I'll pinch off about that much. This is pretty long, but I'm still going to cut this off at the base of the hide. It's quite a bit. At this point, this hair is pretty uneven, so I could stack it, but I do know that I'm going to tie it in. I'm not going to tie in the tips right here. It's a little long, so I'm going to tie it in about there, and then I can trim it. You do want to kind of clean this end, like the bottom end of your hair, just a little bit. Get rid of anything that's too short. And there's also a little bit of like sticky fuzz that gets trapped down here in the fibers that you want to get rid of, because those can kind of get in the way and be a little stinky. So I'll tie those in about there. And I'll show you another trick for tying these in on the other side of the fly. So I just did 2 loose wraps, kind of reorient the flies, and then I'm gonna pull up on my side of the hook to kind of lock those down, and I can really crank, even these out just a little bit. Now, whenever I'm ready to jump to the other side of the eyes, I'm going to take my thread on the bottom side of the fly, or in the gap, sort of, on as it's oriented right now, the bottom, because I don't like having thread on the top of my dumbbell eyes. It's just a personal preference thing. It totally does not matter. But I'll jump on the bottom, crank that down, and the main difference between the top and the bottom of this fly is that you will wrap your hair down the shank of the hook on whatever your belly material is. Doesn't need to be too much, but a substantial amount. Crank that down. I'll trim these up. Clean this up just a touch. I'm not going to be the cleanest head ever, but it really does not matter. Okay. You also want to make sure that you don't tie in your deer hair all the way into the bend of the hook, just up into it, because you don't want your hair to kick down. So we'll move to the underside, or actually what's going to be the back. Next thing I want to put in, which is totally optional, but I really like it, is some flash. You can do all different colors. You can do chartreuse. We're going to use pearl. Another really good one is red. Adds kind of a bloody lateral line. And then I like to cut a little notch right here in the packaging of my flash. That way I can just kind of take my bodkin and pull out however many pieces I want. I don't have flash everywhere. Kind of keeps it neat and tidy. So I'll take about that much. And I will cut that. This is half as much as I want because I double this over. So it's actually going to be that much flash. So I'll take about 4 pieces or so. Find roughly the middle. Take my opposite hand and kind of just loosely wrap this in. And then we can take both halves and pull them on either side of the hook. I really like this method rather than just doing one layer on the inside of the hook. I like having like 4 strands. You tie it in the middle, and then you pull each end on either side of the fly. I think it really makes it look pretty good. Remember, we flip the fly over, so whenever you jump over your eyes, now you're jumping over on the top. If that's something you care about, you don't want to be jumping over on the underside right there. If you want this to look a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to tie these in just behind the eyes. I'm not going to go down the shank of the hook. So I just tie them in real tight right there, go back to the nose. At this point, we'll stay traditional, so we'll go with some chartreuse. A lot of these bucktails that you get from like Bass Pro or whatever are going to have like their natural colors on the outside away from the hide material. So I kind of just preen those back just a little bit to get just the chartreuse. And I'm going to go with about the same amount of white. I'm just going to kind of pinch that and eyeball it. It's a little much. Yeah, that looks about good. So I'll just cut these off. And if you do get a little bit of that natural fiber in there, that's actually probably a little bit of a good idea. Fish aren't perfect, so if you have a little bit of discoloration, that could add to the effect. I'll just kind of clean these out. Get some of those shorter hairs out of there. These are bent a little bit. You can see they kind of kick that way. I'm going to kind of twist these in my fingers, and that kind of evens it out just a little bit, kind of gets all the hairs going different directions instead of all to one side. Now I'm going to even these out just a little bit because this is about the length I want. I don't want to put these too far forward and then have to trim the ends off. This is basically the length that I want, so I will be tying these in from the tips. You can see they're kind of scraggly, so I'm just gonna square those off just a little bit. It doesn't need to be perfect at all. One trick that I like to do to make sure that these are gonna be actually secured is measure the tips of your hair up to the eye of the hook. This is especially important for whenever you're going over the dumbbell eyes, but it's good for right here too. I'm going to take my thread right up against the dumbbell eyes, kind of just do a light wrap around and I'm going to pull up on my side to really lock them in place. All right, there we had some that got a little off. So I'm going to actually, at this point, I don't know if you saw, but some of these hairs were not getting locked in because they kind of slid. So I'm going to actually put these into my hair stacker to really make sure they're all even. Give it a few taps. And then let's try that again. Better. Really crank those down. Like I said, not going to be the prettiest nose on this, but it will definitely catch fish. Preen this a little bit. Just clean that up just a touch. Now, it's really important that you do not jump the eyes and start tying this down onto the shank of the hook. Just gonna even these out. That's what makes a really good Clouser Minnow, is whenever you have your belly material, or what's on the shank of the hook, tied to the shank all the way down to the bend, you have your flash material or your lateral line material, whatever you want that to be, tied in just behind the eyes, and then your back material, what's in the gap of the hook, just tie it in right there at the nose, nice and tight. I'll give this whip finish. Oof. There we go. And I like doing 2 sets of 5. Crowded the eye of the hook a little bit, but I can still fit my thread through there. And there we go. That is Clouser Minnow. You can do these in all sorts of color variations. Like I said, I mean, the possibilities are absolutely endless. This was initially meant for smallmouth bass on the Susquehanna River, but I will be taking these down to Florida to fish for redfish, speckled trout, pretty much anything inshore, and these will work perfectly. They're also great for largemouth bass, just an all-around great fly. If you want to see me tie some other flies, just let me know. I've got all sorts of trout flies, and I'm working on some big game changers. This is a 6-inch single hook game changer. Pretty happy with how this turned out. I don't think that I have the right gear to throw it, but I just think it's really cool looking, as well as the game changers that I tie to catch wiper, smaller finesse changers. So just let me know what you want to see. If you enjoyed this video, share it with someone else who might enjoy it. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe so you don't miss any of my other content coming out. I might do some more fly tying, depending on how this video does and if anyone wants to see that. And if not, then I might still post it. But that's it for now. So thanks for watching.